Okay, second shelf from the bottom. It's hard. I can't really get any closer than this, and it's hard for me to like get in a good position. It's between like a squatting position and a kneeling position. Uh, so something like that. Okay, we'll continue with like classical stuff, Western canon stuff. This is a book on mythology by Peter Grimmall. You got to read mythology if you're going to understand the Greeks, the Romans, the poets, Nietzsche. Dionysus, Carl Karenyi, a very good book. Karenyi is a good author, a good researcher, good mythologist. Is that what they call mythologists? I don't know. Read Karenyi. Definitely the Western canon, Montaigne's essays. Kafka, The Metamorphosis, The Penal Colony, and Other Stories. Next one is Walden by Thoreau. Maybe part of the Western canon, but if not, it's close to belonging on the Western canon, or like it's a book you should read. Thomas Leviathan. This is a famous book. It's usually part of some kind of Western canon list. Why Orwell Matters. Christopher Hitchens. Hitchens was a bit of a little obstreperous punk. I definitely disagree with his politics, and a lot of the stuff he wrote, like the stuff he wrote on Mother Teresa, was like shameful. But he has a lot to offer. Also, he's well-read, but he's also kind of like a stubborn brat. Yeah, personality-wise, I wasn't a fan. Jeffrey Madden's notebooks. Madden did a lot of reading throughout his life, and he collected some famous quotes. I'd say a third of the quotes here are in French, and there's no translation. So if that's a problem for you, you should consider. Okay, Jane Austen's Persuasion. I don't need to say anything about that. Let's put this down here too. Farewell to Arms, Hemingway. I'm not the biggest Hemingway fan, but you can't deny his talent. Homage to Catalonia. I can't get enough Orwell. That's what she said. Animal Farm. George Orwell. Wow, now I'm starting to drop them a little carelessly. Okay, they're landing flat. There's no damage, but anyway. One of my poetry books, kind of out of order here. This is Mary Sarton. Sorry, not Mary. May Sarton. Selected poems. Okay, now we're moving into my Black History section. I've read a lot of Black History stuff, and this shelf and the next shelf contain. The next shelf is all Black History, all the way to the end is Black History stuff, and this stuff is all Black History. And I've read 80% of these books, and these are not all of them. So, but it's been a long time since I read it. This is a book on the Black Panthers. By who's it by? Jones. I don't know his first name. I remember one of the problems with the Black Panthers was that, their members were like, they had a lot of ex-cons. They had a lot of like guys from like really poor, rough neighborhoods. So, and the culture, especially black culture, it's not as like soy boy as the white culture is. Anyway, one of the problems they had was that they were like mistreating their women of the Black Panthers, and that helped towards their demise. That was one of the things. That's all I remember. I'm not saying that there was only negative things to say about the Black Panther movement or the Black Panthers, but yeah. Anyway, The Judas Factor. This is a really good book on Malcolm X. This is The Plot to Kill Malcolm X by Carl Evans. I like this book a little better than the autobiography with Alex Haley. C.L.R. James. I don't know why I did that. I feel like Michael Scott. Anyway, C.L.R. James Reader. This is edited by Anna Grisham. James is an insightful. I want to say intellectual historian. And I like his writing style. He was from, I don't know if he was from Trinidad. I forget exactly where James is from, but anyway, good stuff. Langston Hughes. Everybody knows Langston Hughes. This is his collected poems. I won't say anything. Langston Hughes. James Baldwin. A monster of a writer, right? A giant. Another country. You got to read Baldwin. Ernest J. Gaines, A Lesson Before Dying. I'm not sure why this is in here. Not that it's a bad book, but I don't remember why I bought it. The ISIS Papers, The Keys to the Colors, Francis Cress Welsing. I forget the theme of this book. I forget what this book is exactly about. I know it belongs in the Black Studies section. Yeah, sorry. Harlem Voices. It's got selections by Ann Petrie. I can't say much. Leroy Jones. Leroy Jones is famous. Maya Angelou. I'm not a fan. Chester Himes. Don't know much about. Langston Hughes. Yes. James Baldwin. Yes. Okay. More. Okay, a book on Marcus Garvey. Right. Malcolm's father was a follower of Marcus Garvey. Malcolm had favorable views of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was famous for like being a separatist. Like I think he wanted like people to go back to Africa. And at some time, Malcolm also was kind of a separatist. Like he's like, give us part of the U.S. and we'll stay here, and you guys stay on your side. Eventually, he changed his mind, but yeah, at some point, he was espousing similar views to Marcus Garvey. Shelby Steele, A Dream Deferred. Shelby Steele's a good conservative black author, intelligent guy. The subtitle is The Second Betrayal of Black Freedom in America. Read Shelby Steele. W.E.B. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk. This is his most famous work. This is easily his best work. Du Bois is a mixed bag. He started off kind of like a revolutionary black leader, and he tapered off into a more conservative black leader. He had a lot of negative things to say against Booker T. Washington, as I recall. But in my mind, Booker T. Washington did more for black people than W.E.B. Du Bois ever did. And the champion of all black leaders, the champion of all civil rights leaders in American history, like head and shoulders above Martin Luther King, head and shoulders above Stokely Carmichael, head and shoulders above Huey Newton, head and shoulders above Elijah Muhammad, head and shoulders above Louis Farrakhan, the singing traitor, is Malcolm X. This is 7 speeches. His most famous is probably the Ballad of the Bullet. But it's got other ones. The Message to the Grassroots is another one. Okay, I'm going to get to the bottom shelf. Let me switch this off and I'll come back. Right. I'm on my stomach here like a damn sniper. There's just no way to get closer and for me to reach. So if I'm breathing harder than your normal walrus, you know why. Oh my god. Okay. Speaking of Booker T. Washington. This is The Years 1856 to 1901 by Lewis Harlan. The Making of a Black Leader. Again, Booker T was the conservative voice. He was the voice saying, don't try to get full equal rights. Don't try to like necessarily demand positions in the colleges, like the major colleges. Like learn a trade, right? Learn welding, learn pipe fitting, learn carpentry, learn plumbing, learn, things like that. Learn a trade, and not just be satisfied with that, but you're going to improve your life. Your life is going to improve. Then your children's lives are going to improve, and you won't have all the conflict and all the resistance because, white people aren't ready to give you full equal rights. They aren't ready to have you be full participants in society, especially in the South, right? And that's where he did most of his work, right? He's in Tennessee. And a lot of the black leaders, they found occasion to pump themselves up and say, you know what, this Uncle Tom is preaching to settle for a lot less than we are owed. And in some sense they were right. But in some sense, okay, which one's going to actually help your people? And at the time, I think Booker T was probably right. Fast forward 50 years, I would have said, no, you're settling for too little, right? Times have changed. But at that time, right, we're talking 1856, right? Black people have gotten the right to vote when? 1830s? And they're still struggling, to catch up, right, in education, in skills and work skills, right? I think, anyway, Booker T got a bad rap. To me, he's a great black leader. Okay, and this is another book. Carrying on. This is 1901 to 1915. Okay. I might be wrong about when they got the right to vote. When was the 13th Amendment? The 13th Amendment freed the slaves. 14th Amendment gave women the right to vote. 15th Amendment gave blacks the right to vote. Yeah, that's it. Okay. I get a little confused. Sorry. Sojourner Truth. Ain't I a woman? Ain't I a woman? I was going to keep doing that, but I should just stop. All right, you got to read Sojourner Truth. She's not a feminist, okay? She's not a feminist. And cut the bullshit. She's not a feminist. She was a civil rights activist. Civil rights. Black rights. Not a feminist. Although she used the feminists to make her point. Claude McKay, Home to Harlem. Harlem Renaissance writers. The Harlem Renaissance era probably produced as a collection like 8 or 9 of the top 10. 8 or 9 of the top 10. Like they produced like a collection, like 8 or 9 black authors who have not been surpassed in any era since. Right? Any era since. Which is a damn shame to all those black studies departments, to all these left-wing black activists who say that the white man's keeping them down. Whitey's got his foot on our neck. We can't achieve because of oppression. Yeah, explain the Harlem Renaissance. You fucking victimhood preaching assholes. Explain the Harlem Renaissance. Anyway, go back to the Harlem Renaissance and pick an author. Jean Toomer, Claude McKay, Zora Neale Hurston, even County Cullen, right? James Weldon Johnson. More. Okay. Yeah, that's good writing. It's great writing. Next. So, James Baldwin. This is Notes of a Native Son, right? I think Richard Wright wrote Native Son. Was it Richard Wright who wrote Native Son? I think that's right. Again, it's been a long time. So Baldwin's worth reading. Native Son is worth reading. And Notes on a Native Son, as I remember, was a pretty good read. John A. Williams. This is The Man Who Cried I Am. I don't remember the story, but I remember I really liked this book. And I only came across it because I do a bunch of Black Studies reading. So I recommend this book. It's not just for students who are interested in Black Studies. This book transcends, as most Black authors transcend their race. Okay, James Weldon Johnson. This is Along This Way. This is his autobiography. This is one of the best autobiographies I've ever read. A remarkable man, remarkable story, good writing. Yeah, recommend it. Famous Kane, Jean Toomer. Okay, I won't comment too much. Kwame Ture, Black Power, Black Liberation. This is not Black Liberation theology. That is a racist theology, a Marxist theology, a Barack Obama theology. This is somewhat related. I was never down with with the politics of liberation. I was never down with Kwame Ture, Stokely Carmichael, right? But it's interesting reading. It's good reading. Yeah, I just didn't agree with the politics. Okay. I don't remember why I got Songlines. I forget who recommended it to me. Who recommended this to me, or if it was just something I found on Amazon. Bruce Chatwin, In Patagonia. He's the author of In Patagonia. If that means anything to you, it does not mean anything to me. Invisible Man. Let me back up here. That's what she said. Invisible Man by Ralph Waldo Ellison. Great book. Forget that Ellison is black. Great book. Read this book. Another great book, in my opinion. And I laugh only because it's one of the funniest books I've ever read. John Kennedy Toole, a black author, by the way. he writes about Ignatius Riley, who's basically one of those. He's not like he's from New Orleans. It says here on this on the blurb, but I remember. And he lives with his mother, and he's got his girlfriend, but I cannot describe the character Ignatius Riley. I want to say he's fat. I want to say he's kind of like a homebody. I want to say he's a mama's boy. But at the same time, he's petulant. And he's got a good vocabulary. And yeah, I don't know. I can't do him justice. Especially it's been a while since I read it. So I don't know how to characterize him. But very funny book. Very good read. Read A Confederacy of Dunces. Okay, let me back up here because now I'm a little too close. Okay, this is Richard Wright, a collection of critical essays edited by Richard Maxey and Frank Moore. This is the art. I want to say that's David Cross from The Outsiders jumping out of a window, but I'm just guessing. And speaking of Richard Wright, let's pick up this other one. Richard Wright, Eight Men. Introduction by Paul Gilroy. I don't know who that is. Richard Wright is one of my favorite black authors. He's just one of my favorite authors, period, right? He wrote, like I said, I think he wrote Native Son, but I'm not exactly sure. I don't know why I'm not sure. I know he wrote Black Boy. Maybe he didn't write Native Son. He wrote Black Boy, and my favorite book of his is The Outsider. The Outsider is the first book that I ever read cover to cover. I didn't start reading till like relatively late. I was like 23, 24 when I read my first book. Yeah, I didn't even read a book all throughout junior high or high school. Don't ask me how. But in that book, I think it was David Cross was the main character. David Cross ends up killing somebody, and then a detective is after him. And in one of the scenes, the detective goes into his room, David Cross's room, and on the shelves he sees some books, and among some of the books are authors such as Schopenhauer, such as Nietzsche, and I forget who else. Anyway, so Nietzsche's name caught my eye, and I decided, you know what, let me read some Nietzsche, because the character David Cross was fascinating. I'm like, how could this guy? And in the book, he actually like just walks away from his family. He was in a car crash. I mean, he was in a train wreck, and accidentally a dead body was misidentified as him, and so he decides just to play along with it. Anyway, so I'm like, how can this guy walk away from his whole family? How can he just, do such a cold-blooded thing like that? And yeah, so I found the character fascinating, and I'm like, okay, so he's influenced by Nietzsche, according to Richard Wright. So let me read Nietzsche, and that's what got me started on my Nietzsche fandom. I'm a big Nietzsche fan. I've read a bunch of Nietzsche. I like a lot, and then I ended up choosing philosophy as my major because of Nietzsche. Of course, Nietzsche turns out to be a continental philosopher, and I didn't study any continental philosophy where I went to school. It was all analytics. But Nietzsche remains one of my favorite philosophers. Anyway, continue. Malcolm X. Okay, if Nietzsche is one of my favorite philosophers, Malcolm X is definitely, hands down, my favorite black leader. The Last Year of Malcolm X. This is by George Brightman. Brightman also puts out his Harvard speeches. I think I have it right here. This is also by Brightman. Malcolm X at Harvard. Okay, more. Here's another Harlem Renaissance author. Zora Neale Hurston. Moses, Man of the Mountain. Really easy read. Africa Must Unite by Kwame Nkrumah. Right, Nkrumah was the president of Ghana, as I recall. Okay, more Black History stuff. Cornel West. This is the only book by Cornel West that I can stomach. Everything else became politicized, far left-wing, PC bullshit. Cornel West turned into an idiot. I don't know what happened to the guy. To me, he's like intellectually only one notch above Spike Lee. Yeah, neither one are worth listening to or reading or watching. Margaret Mead and James Baldwin, two intelligent people having a discussion on race, the kind you can never have today. This is a good read. highly recommend it. Okay, this is Frantz Fanon. Okay, Fanon isn't black, but if you read, if you read the liberation philosophy or political movements, if you read Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, yeah, this is Nikki Giovanni. You're gonna this. They all read Frantz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth, right? Okay, it informs their worldview, so it's interesting and it's good to know. Things Fall Apart. This is Achebe. I'm not a fan of this book. I'm not a fan of Achebe. I don't know. I just don't like it. It never struck me as true. Never struck me as like anything but like sentimentalist. Malcolm X on Afro-American history. I could read anything on Malcolm. I can read anything by Malcolm. It's great. Tar Baby. Toni Morrison. I can't read anything by Toni Morrison. I've read enough. I've read enough Toni Morrison, including Tar Baby, to know that she's just a bad writer. Sorry, she's just a bad writer, and she doesn't. To me, I don't want sentimentalist bullshit. I don't want books that just like, oh, the black woman is a goddess and a queen. Everything she says and does is like to be worshipped, and everything white people do is evil and wrong. And all the characters are like depictions, like all the black characters are good, and all the white characters are bad. And like the world's not that simple, right? The world's not that simple. I'm not with the propaganda. I'm not. Give me the truth. Give me the bare truth. Give me the ugly, hard to swallow truth. Yeah, that I can deal with, right? I don't need you to like prop up black people as some saintly fucking race, right? They're not, and white people are not. No, they're not in a saintly fucking race either, right? But give me something real that I can fucking grapple with and like come to my own conclusions with. Don't give me fucking stories where they're all evil and black people are all good. The Big C. Langston Hughes. Is The Big C his biography? I'm not sure. It's been a long. Yeah, it's the autobiography. Yeah, it is. I forgot about that. My Soul's High Song, County Cullen. I love County Cullen. I really like County Cullen. County Cullen wrote probably the most poignant lines in poetry that I've ever read by a black author. I've like one of the most poignant lines in the history of poetry in my mind were written by County Cullen. I'm not gonna be able to find it, but there's something like it was something like it's like a wondrous thing that God made me black and bade me sing. Right? Because of all the tragedy that black people had gone through, all the struggle, all the turmoil, all the deprivations, all the strife, right? It was so like, and slavery, like how, and he's speaking for the slaves too, right? So he's basically saying, how can you make me go through all of this and make me a poet, right? Where I'm supposed to write about the beauty of the earth and life and, right? Anyway, I wish I could find it in here, but I don't have it. I don't have it marked off, and there's no way I'm gonna just luck out and find it. Anyway, County Cullen, so County Cullen was not liked by his fellow black authors because he wrote a lot in the black vernacular, right? And they didn't want that. They didn't want white people like reading things by black authors that were in that in that uneducated black vernacular. But to me, you cannot ignore County Cullen. He belongs up there with the best of them. The Harlem Renaissance by Arna Bontemps. Arna Bontemps is a famous. He's famous. I can't remember why anymore. Okay, yeah, the Harlem Renaissance. I have other books. I don't know where they are though. More Malcolm X. This is again by George Brightman. More Malcolm Speaks. And finally, kind of misplaced, Nabokov. But Nabokov belongs everywhere. All right, that's it for the first bookcase. I'm probably gonna stop now because my voice is getting scratchy. I don't want people to think I have the coronavirus. All right, let me know. Let me know what you have to say. If I misspoke, remember I'm doing this off the top of my head, right? I don't have a script, and I'm not the most eloquent person. I'm just going down and commenting as I see books. I haven't rehearsed this. Sometimes I'll misread things. Sometimes I'll misstate things. Sometimes I'll misremember dates. But for the general part, I think I'm giving you legit information, and my opinions are, pretty honest. So feel free to criticize. That's your prerogative. You know, as Bobby Brown said before that cocaine got him. All right, later.